شينا ثيتو لتحرستو داديوما يتحرست إذا نديوما قتيو كولونويث بولشونو إنجليشويو هانو يطلب يبوعثو دو ضيف أيضا كي تعمينا وحوريذا ستيف وشانات كتيو أمدبرونو دوشوتوسو ديمونت فور أكشن قدمينا لأدفا معدوازولو أمدبرونو إذا دامريكا ومشغولينا بولشونو إنجليشويو وعلو طلب إذا استي ودحورنا إذا لكسيمينا كنشونوثو بحارتو بولشونو سريويو كمي ويترجم بلكي لو ياخذوا مدد كلوزم كبعينا كل مدد يصفيو بولشونو انجليشويو هاو خاق سيمينالا بلكي بغير تحجزوثو كي بندعورينا لشو لانو Ladies and gentlemen, today we have with us Mr. Steve Oshana, Executive Director of Demand for Action, ADFA, we'll call it ADFA now on. Mr. Oshana, welcome to Assyria TV.
Thank you for having me.
You're here to reply to a program we broadcasted recently with Mr. David William Lazar of American Mesopotamian Organization, AMO. Recently we sent that program, and you are here to reply on it, especially the accusations that you were told that you had been accused, Mr. Lazar and his friends in AMO, for treason and other like this in America. What do you say of his statements that you accused him of treason?
Well, to be fair, I think I'm going to start by having to ask Assyria TV for an apology for using a false headline, because one, obviously we never accused anybody of treason. That's preposterous. But in the interview, the gentleman you interviewed never actually claimed that we had accused them of that. This is, this was a title that Assyria TV used to get headlines. Obviously, using a demand for action's name in your title is going to get more people to watch your show. So obviously these are ridiculous, because you offered no evidence, no facts to prove any of these things. So I'm going to start by asking for an apology for using that headline, because it was neither true nor an accurate reflection of anything that your guest said.
Let me say this. You demand an apologize from Assyria TV, but it was the headline. It was ours, of course, but it was a summary of what he said. And if you look at the 18th minute in the program, he actually says that all the persons and organizations he mentioned, including you, that you have accused the AMO and the Restore Nineveh Now Foundation for cooperating, supporting GPF, which those will lead to be a traitor in US, and that's exactly what he say. Therefore, we use this, that you are accusing him for treason. So it's not our words. We have summarized his message. That's what I want to send you, and that's in 18th minute of his interview, actually.
Right. I mean, I watched the interview.
Yeah.
However, the fact is there was no evidence provided. Nobody has come forward with anything. For an alleged news organization to be offering their venue as if it were a cheikhana for gossip, I think is beneath what our people expect of our news stations. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have, but I just wanted to get that out there.
Okay. Anyway, Mr. Lazar is also accusing ADFA for promoting a Kurdish agenda. What do you say to that accusation? Because he clearly said that you are promoting and you are running a Kurdish agenda by supporting the Doronoe and MFS.
Right. So to that, I'll say a few things. For starters, it was the gentleman that you had on has himself, had his own interactions with the Dwaranoya. I have a couple of articles here that I pulled up where the gentleman, the Syrian Federation, has been going to meetings at the United Nations with the Dwaranoya, with Mejlis al-Shabi, who are funded by the KDP. So this idea that we're promoting a Kurdish agenda without even sort of elaborating on what that means or providing any proof, when they're the ones going to meetings with the Dwaranoya, with these KDP-aligned organizations and individuals, I think is the height of hypocrisy. One of the things I've noticed in our community with our political organizations and our Al-Assas leaders is that they're willing to sort of work with anybody when it gets them access and when it benefits them. I have a photograph here where I took members of the Assyrian American National Federation to the White House, and they were happy to work with us when we were taking them to the White House. But once that access stopped, all of a sudden, we were traitors and we're working on a Kurdish agenda. So, I think that if you're, as a news station, you could have simply done a Google search and come up with that information, but you didn't. You didn't ask for any evidence of this. You didn't. Allegedly, I've publicly stated that we're pursuing a Kurdish agenda. If that was the case, there would be a video of that. You obviously don't have that because you couldn't play that because it doesn't exist. So I don't know. I think this is really hypocritical. I think this idea that we're pursuing a Kurdish agenda is preposterous. We're pursuing an agenda of saving lives. We have one focus and one focus only, and it's saving lives and bringing light to this genocide being perpetrated against our people.
Well,
and I think that our news stations and our organizations should focus a little bit more on that, as opposed to spreading gossip and rumors. We don't partake in gossip and rumors. We don't use it as the basis for any kind of argument, for any kind of media that we do. So in that case, I would say it's ridiculous. We support and work with all the different political parties. We use the media of all the different political parties, all the churches, all denominations. We don't discriminate against people for that. So I think that's unfair. We've equally worked with other political parties as well, including the ADM and others. So I quite frankly I think that's preposterous. I think it's cheap, and I think it was opportunistic of you folks to use a demand for action to get better ratings. And as you saw, you got exactly that. When you talk about a demand for action, whether good or bad, people listen because we're the most we're an important organization globally.
Let me say this about Dwaranoye, about MFS. Their militia in Syria is called MFS, Syriac military. What is it in English? Everybody knows that Dwaranoye are a branch or are linked to PKK and YPG. Do you deny that, or do you accept that?
They are linked to the YPG. The connection to the PKK is slightly more dubious, but yes, they are linked to the YPG.
Okay.
What are you getting at?
Yes, but let me read just a quote. Your statement, a statement you published directly after our program was broadcasted, and at the point 5 you say, I'm quoting, "We unequivocally support the brave soldiers of the MFS and have successfully advocated on their behalf as they are fighting to protect the people of the greater Hasakeh region." That this means that you are very proud of supporting Dwaranoye and MFS. But
we are proud of supporting people who are risking their lives and who are fighting to protect Assyrians, Syriacs, Chaldeans, and others in Khabar, in Hasakeh. We obviously don't endorse any political party. We don't endorse the Dwaranoye or anybody else. But we supported the MFS. the same way that we supported the NPU and others politically. So, this idea that if what you're saying is we're only supporting one and not the other, then that's preposterous, because we support everyone, including the Sutoro and Khabar guards who now go by the acronym GPF.
Why didn't you write?
Excuse me. Obviously, you have access to a computer. You can use Google. You know that the MFS is aligned with the YPG. I want to get back to that point, because you seem like you were getting somewhere with that. What is the MFS being linked with the YPG necessarily have to do with them being able or unable to protect the people of Hasake? I guess that's my more important question.
Okay, but you are very aware. Are you not aware of the atrocities and the violations the YPG is making against Assyrians and other groups? Before that, you told us you are supporting all groups, and you mentioned other militias too, but in your statement you only mentioned the MFS and the Doronoye. Okay.
Well, to be fair, just to go back a second, we didn't mention the Doronoye, and we did mention the NPU as well. And so I guess this again, when we have the AMO going into meetings, signing letters with the Doronoye reps, going to the UN with the Doronoye, we don't know what they're talking about. So this accusation that somehow by us supporting people who are fighting to defend Hasake is a negative thing. I'm going to challenge you on that, because yes, we support anybody who fights to protect the Syrians, Chaldean Syriacs. We're going to support them in any way that is within our ability to do. So I don't know what the criticism is exactly. I understand that the relationship between Kurds and Assyrians is not always the best. Obviously, nobody's perfect. The Kurds are guilty of a lot of human rights violations, both in Iraq and in Syria, against our people, and that's something that it has to be dealt with, and that's a political question. That's for the Doronoye and the other political parties to decide amongst themselves. What we simply do is are concerned with saving lives. There are, Daesh is attacking Assyrian villages. There are people protecting Assyrian villages. We will advocate for the people who are protecting them from ISIS. ISIS is at this point the #1 enemy. That's the position of a demand fraction. That's the position of the different militias in Iraq and Syria as well. So harping on this idea that somehow we're pursuing a Kurdish agenda, I would turn that question. Had you done a simple Google search, you would have known that these organizations are also going into meetings with the Doronoye to the UN and representing our people as part of the coalition. So at some level, these folks are working together. I don't know exactly how deep that goes, but I think you trained your sight on that, I think, a little bit unfairly, and quite frankly, the facts tell a whole entirely different story.
Well, you are telling us that your primary goal is to defend, to protect lives. I don't know what you mean with protect lives, but
ISIS is attacking Assyrian villages in Khabur and Hasake.
Yes,
the
I'm going to
picks up guns and fights ISIS.
Okay,
that's what protecting lives is.
Okay, I'm coming to that. As to this YPG, the Kurdish branch of PKK, PYD, and their military wing, it's YPG, they are oppressing Assyrians systematically. The YPG and their mother organization, PYD, as you know it, I am sure you know it, they have murdered David Jindo. They have looted the Assyrian homes in Khabur, villages. They are making pressure on Assyrian militia to join the YPG or to be part of branch of YPG. They are threatening of confiscation Assyrian properties in Gozato. And we in Assyria TV, we have reported on these things, issues many times. And I'm sure you also have heard or you read about a statement made by 16 churches, organizations, political and cultural organizations of Assyrians, Armenians, and other Christians in Gozerto in northeastern Syria, and they have all denounced the violations, the atrocities of the Kurdish YPG. How come that ADFA disregard all this? So you never, we have never heard you condemn anything of these atrocities and these violations, or did you?
Of course we did. So again, this goes back to what I think is biased reporting. You know, I always go back to Google because I mean, clearly, as you haven't even looked at what we've done. You know, you're talking about a lot of different issues. You know, some of it is more accurate than others. As far as the letter signed by 16 of those organizations, we actually were working to translate that, and we published that. Regarding specifically in this case, they were arguing against the PYD's efforts to institute a Kurdish curriculum. So yes, we absolutely published that. We were talking to Syria about that as that developed. You know, we publish anything that we can verify, and I say verify meaning legitimately verify, not through state media, but verified in some kind of legitimate way. That people approach us and ask us to publish, we'll publish. You know, we don't have whether it's critical of anybody.
Not only publish. Did you condemn the murder, the assassination of David Jindo? Of
course we did. You know, what you're asking is, did we make a public statement about it?
Yeah.
When that situation first happened, we had an Assyrian organization accusing another Assyrian organization of murder. And, you know, we were assessing that situation. We were on the phone with Syria constantly. And we had folks there who were asking us not to publish that because there were some security concerns for people who were still, in danger at that point.
What do you mean? What do you mean an Assyrian organization accusing another Assyrian? Because here was not Assyrian, because YPG was the murderers.
Right. So yeah, but absolutely. But at that time, Syria TV and others were tying this to the MFS, which is an Assyrian Syriac organization. So that was the accusation. They were linking MFS to the YPG and to this murder. So we had a situation where people were still in danger. Our contacts in Syria asked us not to publish it. At that point, we didn't. We published a trial, and just for the record. I was in meetings in the State Department, with translated documents pertaining to that situation, briefing the U.S. government on that, giving updates where we could. One thing I always sort of caution people on is if it's not, just because it's not on Facebook, it doesn't mean that it's not being dealt with. I think, you guys put maybe a little bit too much emphasis on simply social media when, obviously we are a media organization because we've been quoted 3,500 times in international media, including the New York Times, Reuters, and every major publication. I think that speaks to how legitimate our operation is. So just because it's not on Facebook, it doesn't mean it's not being dealt with. So my sort of caution on that would be that when we're in a situation where we have people that are still in danger, and the people that are in danger are asking us to hold off on something, we're going to hold off on it. Similar to when we're dealing with the hostage situations. I mean, there have been times where we've had information before it became public, and we've had church leaders and others ask us to not publish it for the safety of the people involved. So we're going to respect that. Again, we're in the business of saving lives. That is why we do this. We're all volunteers. We have a lot of people who give a lot of their time because they want to save lives. And so if we're put in a position where publishing something, even if true, will risk Assyrian, Christian, Chaldean, Syriac lives, we're not going to publish it because that's that's irresponsible. And what if you folks can obviously publish and do whatever you want,
okay,
but we're not going to incite any
all
any
right.
people in danger.
I got your point. I got your point. Why do you think that Assyrians in Gozerto, in northeastern Syria, refuse to be a part of the Kurdish autonomy or their militia, YPG or so? Why do you think they are not happy with working with this Kurdish party?
Well, first of all, I would refer that question to the people of Gozerto. You know, I was born and raised in Chicago, and I live in Washington, D.C. I don't live in Syria, so I'm not going to make any kind of assessment as to what the people in Syria should or shouldn't be doing, or why they are or aren't doing something. But that being said, the reality on the ground in Syria and in Iraq is very different than it is, you know, from the living rooms of Stockholm and from Chicago and LA. You know, while they don't necessarily work with each other or are part of their organizations, there is cooperation between, you know, these different militias, even when they are in opposing political parties. The same is true in Iraq. You know, these people coordinate with one another. Even like the militias who are not part of the Peshmerga in Iraq, they still have to coordinate with the Peshmerga because that's how politics works. It is a luxury of those of us in the West who are not on the battlefields of Syria and Iraq, who are not being literally threatened to death by Daesh, to be able to sit here and have these conversations in suits and ties in studios in Stockholm about what people, you know, should or shouldn't be doing, or what the answer to the political question is. That's quite frankly a luxury that people there don't have. So my short answer is you should ask that question to the people of Gozerto. Invite them on your show and they can answer that question for you. I'm an advocate in Washington, D.C.
Well, I'm asking you as a representative of ADFA, since nobody other of the other members wanted to come to our studio, they sent you. So I'm asking you because in your statement, in the statement that I quoted recently from your statement, you're clearly supporting a group who is marginalized among the Assyrian community in Syria. Why are you supporting such a marginalized group and leaving all other 95% of the Assyrian community, Assyrian organizations, churches? No one of them are happy with the Kurdish rule in Gozerto, but you're supporting just the part who is happy with, or who is a part of the Kurdish rule. Why that?
So you asked two questions. So I'm gonna answer the first one first. I'm a representative of a demand for action. You know, I do not speak, neither does the demand for action speak on behalf of any organizations, political parties, churches, or individuals. I can't answer questions for them. If you have a question for why people in Gozerto or anywhere else feel the way they do about something, have them on your show.
Okay,
so
but you told us.
Let me finish. I'm answering your question. I think again, this goes back to the false premises that we're offering with regards to how we're posing these questions. We're not promoting any individual political party. However, if there are people picking up guns, shooting at ISIS fighters who are trying to shoot at Assyrian, Chaldean, Syriacs, and others in our villages in Syria and Iraq, we're going to support them. That's the bottom line. If you don't like a political party, that's your decision. That's fine. I have my own political opinion.
That means
when someone is defending Khabur, when someone's defending Hasake, whatever side they're on, we're going to support those people.
Okay.
We have women that are being kidnapped and children that are being kidnapped. Our women are being raped. And you're saying that we should be fighting the people who are trying to protect them?
No, I'm not saying. Sorry.
Our community deserves better than this.
Sorry, I'm not saying you're obliged to fight them, but I'm just saying that you're supporting just one little marginalized group, even though if they are
okay.
just
Again,
let me ask this moment, just a moment,
we supported everybody.
No,
it was
no.
clear in our statement.
Okay, do you support GPF, Gozerto Protection Forces?
Of course we do. Of course we do. Absolutely we do. Those are people who are bravely fighting to also protect our people. But you have to understand, when we talk about support and promoting and things like that, you know, we work within a U.S. legislative system that allows and doesn't allow certain things. You know, to be able to qualify for support, you know, for the U.S., there are certain criteria that they have to meet. The MFS met that criteria. In Iraq, the NPU meets that criteria. And so we're going to support the people who that we are able to support. You know, when there are times that we still advocate on behalf of the others, and we do advocate on changing U.S. policy in Iraq and Syria to better serve our communities. But of course we support the GPF. Like I said, anybody who picks up a gun and fights ISIS to protect our people, we support them. And I'm saying, and you know, we're broadcasting this live. We support anybody who does that. So, you know, if you decided that you wanted to go to Syria and pick up a gun, I would support you too, Ogun.
Thank you. Very good. You mentioned Iraq several times. Can I ask you what political Assyrian political organization in Iraq are you in contact with, and what level? Do you have contacts with everyone or any particular?
We have contacts in all the different political parties. We have contacts with all the churches at every level, from individuals in the militias to the heads of the party. You know, I mean, we're in contact with just about everybody. You know, we're very fortunate that we have a very broad organization. You know, a Demand for Action, as you know, operates in 15 different countries. We have members that are Demand for Action members who are part of every different Assyrian political party. So, you know, we have people who are constantly in touch with all these political parties, who are aggregating information and you know, who are providing it back to us and providing, you know, giving us guidance as to how we should go about that. Okay. But, you know, to answer your question, I think that does it fine. You know, we speak to everyone. We talk to all the different churches. You know, we have support from a variety of different levels within these organizations, within the militias, and that's how we operate. We operate based on facts. We operate based on, you know, evidence, and that's, you know, that's what we do. And again, anybody who is picking up guns and fighting to protect our people, we will support those people. Obviously, the situation in Iraq militarily is a little bit different because, you know, in Syria, ISIS is actually attacking Assyrian villages where people are still there, and there are ongoing fights between, you know, Assyrian Syriac militias and Daesh. You know, in Iraq, they're still obviously building the capacity for that, and we have supported the building of capacity for those Assyrian Chaldean Syriac forces through legislation and through other means.
Do you support the creation of Nineveh Plain province? And if so, where should it be tied, to Baghdad or Erbil?
Whether we should be tied to Baghdad or Erbil is, if that's, I think that's a false question, personally. You know, Iraq is a sovereign country. We respect the sovereignty of the Iraqi state. You know, if the question is who the Assyrian Chaldean Syriac people in the Nineveh Plains should support, that's a question for them to answer. I mean, you know,
you as
exactly
ADFA.
how to answer that, whether they should have a referendum or what the case is. But, you know, I'm American born. I don't live in the Nineveh Plains. So, you know, I can't answer the question on what's best for the Assyrian people.
But do you support the creation of a province of the Nineveh Plains?
Of course we do.
You
Absolutely.
do.
We've been working on that.
What?
You know, we've been supporting that for years.
Okay. If the Nineveh Plains become a known province, what political future do you see for it, or do you desire? What should that lead to, from your point of view, for the Assyrians?
From my point of view, speaking as an individual,
No, ADFA, from ADFA's point of view.
Or as a defender, I can speak on behalf of my organization when I say this. What we want is for the Assyrian, Chaldean, Syriac people and other minorities, Yazidis, Shabak, Sabian, Mandians, who have all been persecuted, by the way. What we want for them is for them to be able to live and enjoy the freedoms that you and I enjoy here in the West. I'm an American born, I will say, and I've actually been criticized for this, believe it or not, by Assyrians for being, quote unquote, too American. I love the United States of America. I love this country. I love the freedom that it's given my family from oppression of Saddam's regime. And, I want that freedom for my people in Iraq and in Syria. And in the Nineveh Plains, I want them to be able to live. I want them to be able to work. I want them to be able to pray, to build churches, to worship their Lord and Savior. I want them to be able to raise their family. I want for them what I want for my own family, what we all want for our family. And so that's the most I can say on that.
As to this Daesh, ISIS, I see that you are using the fight against ISIS, the fight against ISIS, Daesh, as an excuse or to cover the atrocities of the Kurds. Am I wrong? Or when you say
you cannot be more wrong. Okay, that is preposterous. Look, again, I invite you and everyone to come to Washington, and we have people visit Washington all the time. Just because I'm not, just because it's not on Facebook and we're not bashing Kurds, which I think is a bad policy to just bash people openly, without actually dealing with the issues politically. Just because we're not on Facebook bashing somebody, it doesn't mean we're not dealing with the serious questions. I've met, and as you can see by the signed photograph behind me, I've met with the President of the United States, and I've brought these issues up with President Obama personally. So, for people to say that we're not talking about that is preposterous, and it is false. And I think to make those accusations without providing or without providing any facts or knowing the facts is ridiculous. We have reports that we've worked on with minority rights, with a variety of different advocacy organizations and think tanks. The Center for American Progress. We've worked on these reports with these different organizations, specifically highlighting the fact that we need to deal with the reality that the Kurds, in this case the KDP in particular, is responsible for a lot of human rights violations against our people. We have to reconcile that. The answer to that, however, is not simply for us to be hurling accusations and gossiping about each other, about other Assyrians, because they work or don't work with this organization or that political party. That's a luxury that we have in the West that the people in Iraq don't have. I mean, you look at the political parties in Iraq.
I see.
And the independent ones, they walk a very fine line on these issues, and they have to deal with the reality that the Kurds are a reality in Iraq. They're people that we have to deal with. They're going to be a presence in Iraq unless we can find a way to just defeat them. Which, if you have an idea for that, I'll take your suggestions because I don't have one. But we have to be able to do that while dealing with the fact that there are serious human rights violations that they have committed against the Syrians, Armenians, other minorities that have to be dealt with. But those things have to be dealt with politically. They can't be dealt with by people getting on TV and accusing other Assyrian organizations of this or that, providing no proof, by the way, when we need to be working together to find a solution to the real problems that our people are facing. So to answer the question, that's preposterous. We of course do not hesitate from criticizing that. I've made these criticisms to the KRG myself, as have others. And so
let me ask you, just a moment.
This is a fantasy world you're living in.
Let me ask you a personal question as to KRG, Kurdish Regional Government in Iraq. We have heard that you, for a short time, have worked for them in Washington, D.C. Is that also wrong?
That could not be more wrong. That is absolutely false.
Okay.
And that's something that I'm gonna push back against in a very serious way, because that's a serious accusation. That's libel. Now we're getting into defamation of character. So whenever in Washington, and I don't know how it works in Sweden exactly, but in Washington, when you're a lobbyist, when you work for an organization politically, there are disclosures, right? You have to file disclosures. If somebody can provide one LD1 or LD2 disclosure, which is a lobbyist disclosure form, showing that I was a lobbyist or worked for the KRG, I will resign my position on
Very good. Very good. We got the answer. Just a little question about demand for action in USA. Are you registered as a non-profit tax-exempt organization or something like that?
We're not a tax-exempt organization. I mean, we're a political organization, and that's how. And yeah, we're fully registered with the LD1 through the Lobbyist Disclosure Act. You can get all of our disclosures online if you are so inclined.
Is it in Washington or any special state?
So Demand for Action itself is headquartered in Sweden. The U.S. operation. When you lobby in the U.S., you have to register yourself through the Lobbyist Disclosure Act, and that happens in Washington D.C. You go through the clerk of the Senate and like the secretary of the House of Representatives, and you file a disclosure basically saying I'm a political advocate for such and such cause.
Okay, I think I'm satisfied with your answers for me. Is there anything you want to add before we put an end?
Yeah, I mean, I want to address briefly our militia fighters in Iraq and Syria, because I think that as an Assyrian and those of us Assyrian Chaldean Syriacs, we owe a debt of gratitude to all of those people who are fighting to protect our people in Iraq and in Syria. And I think, I think when our political organizations in the U.S. are going on TV and spreading gossip and rumors, I mean, literally going on TV and saying, and I quote, so-and-so made fun of me. I mean, like, this is not, I think that is a disservice to people who are risking their lives and who are doing it valiantly. And so to our militia fighters in the GPF, in the MFS, and NPU, Dukhnosha, everywhere else, on behalf of all Assyrians in the United States, I'm sorry that you guys have to, and you guys and ladies who are fighting to protect our people have to see us fight and bicker like this and hurl accusations at each other. It's just sad, we're being attacked. Our very existence is under attack. And the best we can offer is gossip and rumors, and I'm sorry about that. And I thank you all, and I want them to know, and I want all of our people in Iraq and Syria to know that we'll never stop fighting on your behalf. And we love you and all the sacrifices you made for our people. So thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you for participating in our program. Thank you.
Thank you.